Captain Dongwoo Kim rubbed his tired eyes as he walked down the long corridor of his ship, the Harmony's Edge. 23 years. 23 long years since humans first met aliens, and he had spent most of that time saying yes sir and of course to every demand they made. Today had been no different. The Vortani Empire wanted more mining rights on human worlds, and the peaceful Kalari needed protection from being kicked off their home planets. As always, humans found a way to make everyone happy. The bridge was quiet when Dongwoo entered. His crew looked as tired as he felt. They had been negotiating for 18 hours straight, trying to find a solution that would keep the peace. That was what humans did best, everyone said. They were the galaxy's peacekeepers, the ones who could solve any problem with words instead of weapons. "Captain," his communication officer called out, "we're getting a message from the outer colonies." "It's marked urgent," Dongwoo sighed. "Another problem to solve. Another angry alien species that needed calming down." "Put it through." The screen flickered to life, showing a panicked human face. It was Commander Yujin Park from the colony of New Seoul. Her usually neat uniform was torn, and smoke filled the air behind her. "This is New Seoul Colony calling any human ship." Yujin's voice cracked with fear. "We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Multiple alien warships in orbit. They're not responding to our calls. They're just firing." Dongwoo felt his blood turn cold. "Commander Park, this is Captain Kim. What ships? Who's attacking you?" "It's the Hegemony Coalition," Yujin replied, her image shaking as explosions rocked her command center. 7 different species all working together. They said humans are too weak to deserve space. They said we need to learn our place. The communication cut to static for a moment. Then Yujin's face appeared again. This time there were tears in her eyes. "Captain, they're targeting the schools. The hospitals. They're not trying to capture the colony. They're trying to kill everyone." Dongwoo gripped his chair. In 23 years of dealing with aliens, no one had ever attacked human civilians. There had been arguments, trade disputes, even some small fights between military ships. But never this. Never the wholesale slaughter of innocent people. "How many people are on New Seoul?" he asked quietly. 2.3 million, Yujin whispered. "Mostly families, children. We built this place to be safe, to show the galaxy that humans could create something beautiful." The screen suddenly filled with light as another explosion shook Yujin's command center. When the image cleared, half her staff was gone. Blood covered the walls. "Captain," Yujin's voice was barely audible now, "tell them we tried to surrender. Tell them we offered to give them anything they wanted. They laughed at us. They said humans need to learn that being nice doesn't make you strong." In the background, Dongwoo could hear something that made his heart break. Children's voices, calling for their parents as the orbital bombardment continued. Young voices that would never grow up, never see another sunrise, never have the chance to explore the galaxy their parents had worked so hard to join. "Captain Kim," Yujin said, looking directly into the camera, "promise me something. Promise me that when people ask what happened here, you'll tell them the truth. We died because we were kind. We died because we chose words over weapons. We died because we believed that being good was enough." The screen went white, then black, then nothing but static. Dongwoo stared at the empty screen for a long time. Around him, his crew sat in shocked silence. Finally, his communication officer spoke up. "Captain, should we send a message to Earth Command? Should we call the Galactic Council?" Dongwoo didn't answer right away. He was thinking about all the times he had swallowed his pride to keep the peace. All the times humans had been insulted, cheated, or pushed around, and they had simply smiled and asked how they could make things better. All the times they had chosen to be the bigger species, to turn the other cheek, to prove that intelligence was better than violence. 2.3 million people gone, because the galaxy thought humans were too soft to fight back. "Sir?" his officer asked again. "What are your orders?" Dongwoo stood up slowly. He thought about his own children back on Earth, playing in parks that might not exist tomorrow if the galaxy decided humans were too weak to defend themselves. He thought about every human colony, every human ship, every human family that was now at risk because someone had decided to test humanity's limits. "Send a priority message to Fleet Admiral Hyun-Woo Lee," he said quietly. "Tell him what happened. Tell him exactly what they said. Tell him that the Hegemony Coalition wants to know what humans do when we're pushed too far." The communication officer's hands shook as he typed the message. Everyone knew Admiral Lee. He was old Earth military from the time before first contact when humans still fought wars against each other. He had been the one to suggest that humanity should present itself as peaceful to the galaxy, to hide their true capabilities in the name of making friends. Message sent. Captain, the officer reported. Dongwu nodded. Now send another message. To every human ship, every human colony, every human station in the galaxy. Use the old military codes, the ones we were told to forget. Sir, those codes haven't been used in over 20 years. I know, Dongwu said. Tell them it's time to remember who we used to be before we decided to be nice. As his ship turned toward Earth, Dongwu thought about the words Yu Jin had spoken before she died. She was wrong about one thing. Humans hadn't died because they were kind. They had died because the galaxy mistook kindness for weakness. That was a mistake that would not be made twice. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo Lee received the message in his office. He read it 3 times, his face growing harder with each word. Then he stood up, walked to his window, and looked out at the peaceful blue planet below. Soon he knew that peace would end. The galaxy wanted to see what humans did when their patience ran out. They were about to find out. Ambassador So Young Choi walked into the Galactic Council chambers with a smile on her face, just like she had done every day for the past 8 years. The other ambassadors barely looked up as she took her seat. To them, she was just another human diplomat, probably here to complain about the attack on New Seoul and ask for help that would never come. The council recognizes the human representative, announced the Galactic chairman, a tall alien with blue skin and too many arms. I assume you wish to discuss the recent unpleasantness? So Young nodded politely. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I would like to address the destruction of New Seoul Colony by the Hegemony Coalition. Several aliens shifted in their seats. The Hegemony Coalition had 7 members on the council, and they all looked smug. One of them, Ambassador Croxus, actually laughed. Unpleasantness? Croxus said. We prefer to call it education. Your species needed to learn that being soft does not earn respect in this galaxy. So Young's smile never wavered. I see, and what would you suggest we do about it? Accept your place, another Hegemony member spoke up. Stop pretending to be equal to warrior races. Accept that some species are meant to lead, and others are meant to follow. That's very interesting advice, So Young said calmly. And if we refuse? The Hegemony ambassadors looked at each other and laughed again. Then you'll learn the same lesson as New Seoul, Croxus said. How many colonies are you willing to lose before you understand? So Young nodded as if she was seriously considering the question. I'll take your words back to my government. I'm sure they'll find your position very educational. As the council session ended, other ambassadors came up to So Young to offer their sympathy. They all said the same thing. Humans should file a formal complaint, maybe ask for economic sanctions, definitely try to negotiate a peaceful solution. That was what humans always did. What none of them knew was that while So Young smiled and thanked them for their concern, her earpiece was receiving constant updates from across human space. Updates that would have terrified them if they knew what they meant. Far from the capital world where the council met, things were happening that no alien spy network had ever detected. Colonel Minho Jang stood in the control room of what appeared to be a simple mining station in the outer rim of human space. For 15 years, this station had produced rare metals and sent them to human colonies. Every alien scan had confirmed it was exactly what it appeared to be. But now the mining equipment was folding away, revealing something else entirely. Weapons manufacturing systems that had been built piece by piece over 2 decades, disguised as innocent industrial equipment. Assembly lines that could produce more firepower in a day than most species could build in a year. How long until we're fully operational? Minho asked his chief engineer. 6 hours, sir. All the civilian equipment has been moved to storage. The weapon systems are coming online now. Minho nodded. Around him, people who had spent years pretending to be miners and engineers were putting on military uniforms they had kept hidden for decades. These weren't civilians suddenly pressed into service. These were soldiers who had been waiting, training, preparing for the day when humanity's patience would finally run out. Across human space, similar transformations were taking place. Captain Hee-Won Nam walked through the cargo bay of her ship, the Merchant's Dream. For 12 years, this vessel had carried trade goods between human and alien worlds. She had hosted dinner parties for alien dignitaries, negotiated trade deals, and always made sure her guests felt welcome. Those guests had no idea that the cargo containers lining her ship's walls were fake. Behind them lay docking bays filled with fighter craft that existed in no official human military registry. Her crew of traders and diplomats were actually pilots and weapons specialists who had maintained their cover for over a decade. "Captain," her first officer said, handing her a military uniform. "Orders from Earth Command. All ships are to begin Phase 2 of Silent Thunder." He-1 looked at the uniform she hadn't worn in public for 20 years. "Any word on how the aliens are reacting?" "They think we're evacuating our outer colonies. Their spy networks are reporting increased ship traffic, but they assume it's civilians running away in fear." Hai-1 smiled grimly. The Hegemony Coalition had expected humans to panic, to flee, to beg for mercy. Instead, humanity was moving pieces into position for a game the aliens didn't even know they were playing. Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Hyun-Woo Lee stood before the Emergency Human Council. The room was filled with people who officially didn't exist. Military leaders who had supposedly retired years ago, scientists who had been working on civilian projects, intelligence officers who had spent decades pretending to be cultural attachés and trade representatives. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lee began, "for 23 years we have presented humanity as a peaceful species. We chose diplomacy over warfare, kindness over strength, patience over revenge. We did this not because we were weak, but because we hoped the galaxy could be better than it was." He paused, looking around the room at faces he had known for decades, people who had sacrificed their military careers to maintain humanity's peaceful image, people who had watched aliens insult their species while staying silent to keep the peace. "The attack on New Sol has shown us that our hopes were misplaced. The galaxy mistakes our kindness for weakness, our patience for cowardice. They believe that because we choose not to fight, we cannot fight." The room was completely silent. Outside, normal life continued on Earth. People went to work, children played in parks, families had dinner together. None of them knew that in this room, their representatives were making a decision that would change the galaxy forever. "Project Silent Thunder is now fully activated," Lee continued. "Every hidden weapons facility, every disguised warship, every sleeper agent we have placed in alien governments over the past 2 decades. All of it is now online and awaiting orders." General Mi Young-yu stood up. "Admiral, what are our rules of engagement?" Lee's expression didn't change. "There are no rules, General. For 23 years we played by everyone else's rules. We accepted insults, we tolerated abuse, we turned the other cheek no matter how badly we were treated. That ends now." He walked to the window and looked out at the city below. Somewhere out there, families were going about their daily lives, unaware that their peaceful existence had been built on a foundation of hidden strength. Strength that was about to be revealed to a galaxy that had forgotten why humans had once been feared. The Hegemony Coalition wanted to know what humans do when pushed too far. Lee said quietly, "Send the activation codes to all units. It's time to show them." As the codes went out across human space, a transformation began that would terrify the galaxy. The peaceful traders, the friendly diplomats, the helpful scientists that aliens had grown comfortable with, were about to reveal their true nature. And the species that had chosen mercy for over 2 decades was about to demonstrate why that choice had been an act of supreme confidence, not weakness. Admiral Croxus woke up to alarms screaming throughout his flagship. The massive Hegemony Coalition battleship, the pride of conquest, shuddered as explosions rocked nearby space. Through his cabin window he could see the bright flashes of weapons fire where there should have been only empty darkness. "Report," he barked into his communicator as he rushed toward the bridge. "Sir, we're under attack," came the panicked reply. "Multiple contacts, unknown ship types." They appeared out of nowhere and opened fire on the depot stations. Croxus ran faster. The depot stations were supposed to be secret, hidden in empty space where no human ships ever traveled. They contained enough fuel and ammunition to supply the entire Hegemony fleet for months. How could humans have found them? When he reached the bridge, the scene was chaos. His officers were shouting conflicting reports while tactical displays showed a nightmare scenario. 7 depot stations gone, 3 communication relays destroyed. The main shipyard at Tarkus Prime reduced to floating debris. "How many human ships?" Croxus demanded. We don't know, sir." his tactical officer stammered. They hit us and disappeared before our sensors could get a clear count. Some kind of stealth technology we've never seen before. That's impossible. Humans don't have advanced stealth technology. They're merchants and diplomats, not warriors. But even as he said it, Croxus knew something was terribly wrong. The attacks weren't random. Every target had been chosen for maximum strategic damage. Whoever was commanding the human forces knew exactly where the hegemony's most important facilities were located, and exactly how to cripple them most efficiently. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. General Tai Jin Quan stood on the bridge of a ship that officially didn't exist, watching his tactical display with satisfaction. For 3 months, he had studied every piece of intelligence that human diplomats and traders had gathered over the past 20 years. Now that intelligence was paying off, "Target confirmed destroyed," reported Captain Sun Hee Lim from her stealth destroyer, the Ghost of Seoul. "Hegemony Station Prime is completely offline." Tae-jin nodded. Station Prime had been the Coalition's supposedly impregnable fortress, a massive structure that coordinated military operations across 3 sectors. Sun Hee's ship had appeared directly behind it, fired a single shot from weapons that hadn't existed in any alien database, and vanished before the station's shields could even activate. "Ghost of Seoul, what's your status?" Tae-jin asked. "All systems green, General. The quantum phase cannons performed exactly as designed. Their shields couldn't even detect our weapons until they were already inside the barrier." Tae-jin smiled grimly. The quantum phase cannons were a human invention, developed in secret laboratories that aliens thought were working on improved farming equipment. Like so many human civilian technologies, they had dual purposes that no one outside humanity suspected. "Excellent work, Captain. Proceed to your next target." As Sun Hee's ship disappeared back into the void, Tae-jin turned to his intelligence officer. "Commander Jin-Woo Park, what are you hearing from Hegemony Communications?" Jin-Woo looked up from his console, where he was monitoring dozens of alien communication channels. "Panic, sir. They're calling this impossible, asking how we found their hidden bases, demanding to know what ships we're using. And their reinforcements? Moving exactly as we predicted. Admiral Vexthal is pulling ships from the outer territories to defend their core worlds. They're following Defense Pattern 7, just like our analysts said they would." Tae-jin nodded with satisfaction. For 20 years, human cultural exchange officers like Colonel Jae Hyun-oh had lived on hegemony worlds, learning their languages, studying their military tactics, and memorizing the locations of every important facility. The aliens had thought they were building friendships. In reality, they had been providing humanity with the most complete intelligence network in galactic history. Back on the hegemony flagship, Admiral Croxus was receiving reports that made no sense. "Sir, they hit the fuel depot at Zerion, also the shipyard at Malek's Rest, and the communication hub at Zentara Prime." "All at the same time?" Croxus asked in disbelief. "Yes, sir. Synchronized attacks across 12 systems. Whatever they're using, they have a lot of it." Croxus stared at the tactical display. In 6 hours, the humans had crippled facilities that had taken the hegemony decades to build. Ships that were supposed to be invisible had appeared, struck with devastating precision, and vanished. Most terrifying of all, every attack had targeted exactly the right place to cause maximum damage. "Get me a line to Earth," he ordered. "I want to speak to their Admiral Lee." "Sir, are you going to demand they surrender?" Croxus looked at the destruction on his screens. Facilities that had never been attacked, bases that no enemy had ever found, weapons that had never failed, all gone in a matter of hours. "No," he said quietly. "I'm going to ask them how they did it." The communication screen flickered to life, showing the face of Fleet Admiral Hyun-woo Lee. The human looked calm, almost bored, as if the systematic destruction of hegemony military infrastructure was just another routine day. "Admiral Croxus," Lee said politely, "I understand you wanted to speak with me." "How?" Croxus demanded. "How did you find our hidden bases? How did you get ships past our sensors? How did you know exactly where to strike?" Lee's expression didn't change. 23 years ago, when we first met your species, you told us that humans needed to learn their place in the galaxy. We took that advice very seriously. What does that mean?" "It means we spent 23 years learning everything about you. Every base you built, every ship you launched, every tactical doctrine you developed. While you saw us as harmless diplomats and merchants, we were studying you like scientists study laboratory specimens." Croxus felt a chill run down his spine. You've been spying on us for over 2 decades? Not spying, Lee corrected. Learning. You invited us into your homes, your military academies, your government buildings. You showed us your weapons, explained your strategies, even gave us tours of your secret facilities. All because you thought we were too weak to be a threat. The hegemony admiral stared at the screen in growing horror. The cultural exchange programs were intelligence-gathering operations, Lee confirmed. Every human student who studied on your worlds was actually a military analyst. Every tourist who visited your facilities was mapping them for future reference. Every trader who sold goods at your bases was learning about your defenses. But you're supposed to be peaceful. You always chose diplomacy over war. Lee's smile was colder than the space between stars. We chose diplomacy because we were confident in our ability to win any war that might become necessary. Today you took away that choice. Now you get to see what humans are like when we stop being patient. The communication ended, leaving Croxus staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew sat in stunned silence. They had thought they were fighting the weak, peaceful humans they had known for decades. Instead, they were facing an enemy that had spent over 20 years preparing for this exact moment, and it was only the first day. On the second day of the war, the hegemony coalition tried to fight back. Admiral Vexthal, the supreme commander of all coalition forces, gathered every available ship and launched a massive counterattack against what they thought was the main human fleet near the Centauri system. They found nothing there except empty space and a recorded message. Greetings. Admiral Vexthal, came the voice of Admiral Kyung-Soo Han from the human recording. By the time you receive this message, your reinforcement fleets from the Outer Rim will have been destroyed. Your supply convoys from the core worlds will have been captured. And your secret fortress at Drakthul will be under siege. We suggest you check your communications. Vextal's face went pale as reports flooded in from across coalition space. The humans hadn't been retreating to Centauri. They had been leading him away from the real battle. While he chased shadows, human forces had struck at a dozen locations simultaneously. How many ships do they have? Vextal demanded of his intelligence officer. We don't know, sir. Every time our scouts find them, they disappear. But they're everywhere at once. It's like they have fleets we never knew existed. What the coalition didn't understand was that they were fighting an enemy who had been preparing for this war longer than some of their soldiers had been alive. Admiral Kyung-Soo Han stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Unbroken Resolve, watching his tactical display with satisfaction. His ship was part of the first hidden fleet, 300 vessels that had spent 15 years disguised as civilian cargo haulers. Admiral, reported Captain Na Young-Jon from her destroyer squadron. The hegemony's third battle group is moving to defend their shipyards at Korvac Prime. Excellent, Han replied. They're still thinking like this is a normal war. Signal all units, implement Plan 7. Plan 7 was one of hundreds of scenarios that human strategists had developed over the past 2 decades. Every possible hegemony response had been anticipated, studied, and countered before the war even began. The aliens were fighting desperately to defend assets they thought were important, not realizing that humans had already decided which targets actually mattered. Lieutenant Yoon Ji-song received her orders while sitting in what looked like a normal civilian shuttle. For 6 years, she had flown this route between human and alien worlds, carrying passengers and small cargo. The hegemony checkpoint guards knew her by name, often joking about the harmless human girl who always brought them coffee. Those same guards would have been terrified to know that her shuttle was actually a heavily armed fighter, and that she was one of the best combat pilots humanity had ever produced. Songbird Squadron. This is Control, came the voice in her earpiece. You are clear to reveal and engage. Yoonji smiled as she pressed a series of hidden buttons. Her shuttle's outer hull peeled away like flower petals, revealing the sleek fighter underneath. Around her, 24 other civilian craft were undergoing the same transformation. Songbird leader to all units, she said into her radio. Let's show them what human patience looks like when it runs out. The hegemony forces at Korvac Prime detected the approaching human ships and prepared to fight off another small raid. Instead, they found themselves facing a coordinated assault by fighters that moved faster than anything in their database, armed with weapons that tore through their shields like paper. But the real shock came when they tried to retreat. Every escape route was blocked by human ships that had somehow appeared behind them. Every safe system they tried to reach already contained waiting human forces. It was as if the humans could predict every move before it was made. Colonel Jae-hyun-oh watched the battle from his command ship, feeling a grim satisfaction. For 5 years he had lived on hegemony worlds as a cultural exchange officer, learning their languages and customs. The aliens had thought he was there to build friendship between their species. In reality, he had memorized every military base, every supply depot, every possible retreat route. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "Admiral Vexthal is requesting a ceasefire to discuss terms." "What does he want to discuss?" Jae-hyun asked. "Prisoner exchanges, protected zones for civilians, rules of engagement, standard military protocol." Jae-hyun almost laughed. The hegemony was still thinking this was a normal war between civilized species. They didn't understand that they had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "Send this reply," he said. "There will be no ceasefire, no negotiations, no rules of engagement. You wanted to see what humans do when pushed too far. Keep watching." By the end of the second day, the hegemony coalition controlled less territory than they had when the war started. Their carefully planned defenses had been bypassed, their secret bases discovered and destroyed, their reinforcement schedules predicted and countered. The third day brought even worse news. General Mi Young-yu's forces had taken control of the coalition's main supply routes, cutting off fuel and ammunition to their scattered fleets. Every time hegemony ships tried to regroup, they found human forces already waiting for them. "How do they know where we're going before we know ourselves?" demanded Admiral Croxus during an emergency coalition meeting. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Chang-ho Lee, who had spent 12 years as a xenobiologist studying coalition species, sent them a message that explained everything. "For over a decade, I have studied your biology, your psychology, your cultural patterns. I know how each of your species thinks under stress, how you make decisions in crisis situations, how your military doctrines were developed. When you move your fleets, I can predict where they will go because I understand the minds that command them better than you understand them yourselves." The message continued with even more disturbing revelations. Every human scientist who worked in your laboratories was actually gathering intelligence. Every human diplomat who attended your strategy meetings was memorizing your plans. Every human merchant who sold goods to your military was learning about your capabilities. We have spent 23 years preparing for this war while you believed we were incapable of fighting one. On the fourth day, the coalition's morale began to collapse. Reports came in of human ships appearing and disappearing at will, of battles won before the enemy even knew they were being fought, of strategic positions captured by forces that seemed to materialize from empty space. Captain Seung-min Kim demonstrated the true extent of human preparation when his destroyer squadron performed a coordinated attack on the coalition's fortress world of Malak's Rest. The planet was supposed to be impregnable, protected by orbital platforms that had never been defeated. Kim's ships appeared directly inside the defensive perimeter, having used jump coordinates that human spies had calculated years earlier. Before the platforms could react, precise strikes crippled their power systems and weapons arrays. The attack lasted 17 minutes and left the planet defenseless. But the most terrifying moment came when coalition forces received a message from General Mi Young-yu herself. The human appeared on their screens with a calm expression that was somehow more frightening than any threat. "You asked what humans do when pushed too far," she said quietly. "The answer is simple. We stop pretending to be what you want us to be and start being what we actually are. You wanted to fight warriors instead of diplomats. Your wish has been granted." As the fourth day ended, the hegemony coalition faced a terrible truth. They weren't fighting the peaceful, patient humans they had known for decades. They were fighting a species that had spent over 20 years studying their enemies while pretending to be friends. And every advantage they thought they had was actually a weakness that humans had been planning to exploit. The galaxy's most patient species had finally lost their patience, and the universe was about to learn why that patience had been a gift rather than a weakness. The fifth day began with silence. Across coalition space, communication networks that had operated for centuries went dark. Supply lines that had never been threatened were cut. Fleets that had ruled entire sectors found themselves trapped in systems with no fuel and no ammunition. Supreme Commander Vexthal sat in his command center, staring at a tactical display that showed the complete collapse of everything his species had built. In 4 days, the humans had systematically dismantled an empire that had taken 300 years to create. "Sir," his aide whispered, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." The screen flickered to life, showing the face of Captain Sung-Min Kim. The human looked tired but determined, standing on the bridge of a ship that had appeared from nowhere to destroy the Coalition's last major stronghold. "Supreme Commander Vexthal," Kim said formally, "I am authorized to offer you one final chance to surrender." "Surrender?" Vexthal laughed bitterly. "You've already won. What more do you want?" "We want you to understand something," Kim replied. "This wasn't a war. This was an execution. You thought you were fighting a battle against equals. Instead, you were being eliminated by a superior force that had been studying you for decades." Vexthal felt his heart sink. "What do you mean?" "I mean that every move you've made, every strategy you've tried, every retreat you've attempted, we predicted all of it years ago. You're not fighting human military doctrine. You're dancing to a script we wrote before this war even started." The Coalition leader stared at the screen in growing horror. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the day we met your species," Kim answered honestly. 23 years ago, when you told us that humans needed to learn their place in the galaxy, we decided to learn everything about you instead. Every weakness, every fear, every possible way to destroy you completely." Behind Kim, other humans were visible on the bridge. Men and women who had spent decades pretending to be peaceful civilians, now revealed as the most effective military force the galaxy had ever seen. "The question now," Kim continued, "is whether you want this to end with your surrender, or with the complete extinction of every Coalition species." Dr. Chang Ho Lee had been working for 72 hours straight, but his research was finally complete. The same man who had spent 12 years studying Coalition biology as a friendly scientist had now weaponized everything he had learned. "General Yu," he reported to his commanding officer, "the biological agents are ready for deployment." Mi Young Yu looked at the data with a mixture of pride and revulsion. "These will target each species specifically." "Yes, ma'am. Tailored diseases that will affect only Coalition members, leaving other aliens and humans completely unharmed. Each pathogen is designed to exploit the unique biological weaknesses I discovered during my research years." "And the delivery system?" "Already in place. Remember those medical supplies we've been selling to Coalition worlds for the past decade? They contain microscopic deployment devices that activate on my command." Mi Young stared at the reports. With a single order, she could release diseases that would kill every member of the Coalition species within weeks. Diseases that their medical knowledge could never cure because they were based on biological secrets that only humans knew. "Doctor," she said quietly, "how many Coalition civilians would die?" "All of them, ma'am. The agents don't distinguish between military and civilian targets." Mi Young nodded slowly. This was the moment when humanity would decide what kind of species they really were. They had the power to commit genocide on a scale the galaxy had never seen. The question was whether they would use it. Meanwhile, Captain Na Young John was leading the final assault on the Coalition's last fortress. The planet Drakthal had been their ultimate fallback position, protected by defensive systems that had never been breached. But like everything else the Coalition had built, it had been designed by minds that humans understood better than the aliens understood themselves. "Songbird Squadron, this is Reaper Leader," came Yunji Song's voice over the radio. "Defensive grid is down. You're clear for landing." Nayang's ships descended through an atmosphere thick with smoke from burning military installations. Her Marines, people who had spent years disguised as tourists and exchange students, moved through the fortress with deadly efficiency. They knew exactly where to go because they had memorized the layout during cultural visits years earlier. The Coalition's final stand lasted 3 hours. Then silence fell over their last stronghold. Back in space, Admiral Kyung-Soo Han received reports from across human space. The hidden fleets that had remained concealed for decades were now fully revealed. Patrolling systems that belonged to humanity's enemies. Ships that aliens had believed were cargo haulers were now showing their true nature as advanced warships. "Admiral," his communication officer reported, "were receiving surrender requests from 47 Coalition worlds." "And their military response?" "Non-existent, sir. They have no functional fleets left, no command structure, no ability to coordinate resistance. Total military collapse." Han nodded grimly. The coalition had learned what happened when a patient species finally lost its patience. They had discovered that humanity's greatest deception wasn't hiding their military strength, it was convincing the galaxy that mercy was weakness rather than choice. But the most important moment came when General Mi Young, you stood before a video camera to address not just the coalition but the entire galaxy. Her message would be broadcast to every alien species, every government, every military leader who might be watching. To the hegemony coalition and all who would threaten humanity, she began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had just demonstrated the galaxy's greatest military achievement. You have seen what we do when our patience ends. You have learned what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. She paused, looking directly into the camera. But understand this, we could have done worse. Much worse. The biological weapons we developed could have eliminated your species entirely. The military assets we revealed represent only a fraction of our true capabilities. We chose restraint even in our revenge. Around her, the command center was filled with humans who had sacrificed decades of their lives to maintain their species' peaceful image. People who had swallowed insults, endured condescension, and accepted treatment as inferior beings, all while building the most sophisticated military intelligence network in galactic history. We return now to our peaceful pursuits, Mi Young continued. But remember what you have seen. Every human diplomat you meet has studied your weaknesses. Every human trader who visits your worlds knows how to destroy your defenses. Every human scientist working in your laboratories understands exactly how to eliminate your species. She leaned forward slightly, her expression becoming more intense. We choose to be your friends, your partners, your allies. We choose this freely as equals, not as subordinates. But never forget that it is a choice. And choices can be changed. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. In 6 days, humanity had revealed that their greatest lie wasn't about their military capabilities. It was about their nature. They weren't the peaceful species everyone thought they knew. They were apex predators who had chosen to appear harmless. As the 5th day ended, the hegemony coalition faced a decision that would define their future. Surrender completely and accept whatever terms humanity offered, or face the full consequences of pushing the galaxy's most patient species past their breaking point. Either way, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted forever. The species that had spent 23 years accepting insults and abuse had finally shown their true strength. And the universe would never be the same.